Hello, welcome to Ames Public Library, both in person and online, for this program, which is part of our 2024 lecture series brought to you through a partnership with Ames Public Library and Ames History Museum. I'm Kathy Cooney. I am an adult services librarian here at APL. The library's mission is to connect you to the world of ideas, which we do through diverse and inclusive resources and programming like tonight's event. So for those of you here in person, this room does have an induction loop for the benefit of hearing aid users. To use it, just switch your hearing aid to T. I also have a hearing assistance device in the back and can help you with that if you would like to use it. For those of you online, please submit your questions through the Q&A or the chat function, which is linked at the bottom of the screen, and we'll monitor those to be sure that we share them with our speaker. We also have live captioning enabled, which you can turn on by clicking the CC Live Transcript button and selecting closed captioning. So today's session is being recorded and will be posted to the Ames History Museum's YouTube channel after the event. You'll also be able to find the link to that video and a list of suggested reading relating to the theme at amespl.org/history lectures. And I'll put the link on Zoom as well. We will have time for questions at the end. If you're here in person, we ask that you use the microphone. We'll have somebody coming around with the microphone so that the people who are home on Zoom can also hear your question. All right, and with that, I will turn it over to Alex.
18, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Pfeiffer, the exhibits manager at the Ames History Museum. I want to thank you to coming to our lecture series program tonight, our final one in, we believe, our 18th season. We've been doing this for, thank you all those that have been coming over and over through the years. And thank you to all that are watching online. We're happy to have this great partnership with Ames Public Library and to be able to provide the lecture series in this hybrid format. The museum is a small nonprofit organization doing a big job with limited resources. We want to recognize and sincerely thank those in the audience who are currently members of the museum or volunteers. This faithful annual support provides essential funding for our day-to-day services to the community and our ability to preserve archives and artifacts for present and future generations. If you're not a member and like to become one, please pick up one of our membership forms. We've got some located on the table over there with some other handouts for our Hog at School programs coming up. And go on and become a member today. Our museum is currently closed for expansion, but museum staff and volunteers are still hard at work on research requests, exhibits, programs, and preservation of Ames history. We look forward to welcoming you to our expanded museum later this summer. And in the meantime, check our website, ameshistory.org, for more information about the expansion project and upcoming events. Now, I'd like to pass the mic to Kathy Sveck to introduce our speaker tonight.
I'm so pleased to introduce Jan Beran. Jan calls herself a sport historian. She was first asked to teach sport history while she was a Presbyterian mission worker at Silliman University in the Philippines. She did that from 1960 to 1973 before they returned to the States. After earning a PhD at Iowa State in history, comparative, and philosophy of education in 1976, she taught history of physical education and sport international comparative physical education and technology and social change, all of this from 1976 to 1992. She retired that year, 1992, as Emerita professor. Among many, many writing projects over her long career, she authored the book From 6 on 6 to Full Court Play, A Century of Iowa Girls Basketball. The library staff usually pulls out interesting related books and puts them over on the table. And I'm sorry to tell you that From 6 on 6 to Full Court Play was checked out tonight. So put your name on the waiting list or on the hold list if you'd like to look forward to reading Jan's book about Iowa girls basketball. Now, interest in history runs deep in her family. Her husband, George Beran, was on the faculty in veterinary medicine, where he developed an interest in that college's history and became its resident historian. Jan and George have been married since 1954. Do the math. Jan has evidence many pages long of volunteerism in Ames, all of which reflect her commitment to important social and political issues, as well as humanitarian world awareness, all of which have earned her many awards and recognitions. She has 3 children, 6 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and many former foster children. Please welcome Jan.
Thank you, Kathy. She asked for something for introduction. I did not give her all of that, but now you've heard it. And I want to thank her for the help on the PowerPoint. That's something that's beyond my knowledge, and I'm a little bit anxious about that, but we'll see. Pioneers in physical education. Winifred Tilden was the first directress. Oops, here we go. The first directress of physical culture, located in the Department of Speech, if you can believe that, at Iowa State College in 1904. That may seem a little strange today. A few years earlier, the college had employed a young woman, Sadie Hook, to teach physical culture, which included elocution or public speaking with gentle gesticulation, along with the lifting of Indian clubs and dumbbells. Shown here, the students are working out on the steps of the currently named Cat Hall. Well, that changed with Tilden. She knew, okay. Okay, gentle gesticulation with wands, so on. I would be going like this, only more dramatically, I think. And here are the dumbbells. No, yeah, dumbbells and Indian clubs. I knew there'd be one laugh. Well, this changed with Tilden. She knew that Iowans paid scant attention to the prevailing philosophy that females were too frail to be in college and to play sports. She was athletic. She liked to go camping and being out of doors. Winifred was born here in Ames, probably quite near to where we're sitting and standing, in 1880. So she had probably heard about the campus activities, such as the women's nail driving contest and foot race competitions for women, even before 1900. Maybe she had even attended the mixed doubles tennis competition that the college had with Simpson College in 1895, and seen the women students playing basketball outdoors in 1898. Basketball was first developed by Sargent in 1891. So it got here to the center of the country very quickly. Now, the official is the one in the white Gibson girl shirt and hat and the flared skirt. And you can see that they were wearing bloomers and having a good time. And you cannot see the basket. The first basket was really a basket, like a peach basket, the old-time peach basket, and had the bottom in it. But I think they had moved on from that. So she had seen women playing those things. And she'd also known that some women played outdoors during the winter, even though the snow was on the ground. So the mania for basketball for Caitlin Clark is nothing new in Iowa today. She might have joined women students in playing baseball that was at least 2 miles from campus and barred male spectators. There was no special sportswear. Women wore their ankle-length dresses. When she was 14 in 1894, she might have laughed as she read the piece in the student newspaper that said, "The secret is out that the trunk of a young woman's body does not extend to the feet or even to the knees." In that same article, the woman editor noted with pleasure the ride in women's sports. Winifred was probably a little bit envious that she was not old enough to join the popular college women's cycling club, because when she was 18, she and a friend rode their bikes to Des Moines. Her brother rode to the Twin Cities. So RAGBRAI isn't all that new either. So you might surmise that when she was appointed physical directress, she started an official women's sports competition like was not going on in other schools. Not so. While she saw no reason why girls and women could not participate in sports, her curriculum was focused on each student's physical health as well as teaching sports so that they could play throughout their lives, not just in class. How was she prepared to be directress of physical culture? Her parents decided that she would have the best education available. And of course, in 1890, that was in Eastern schools, Mount Holyoke in Massachusetts. And it may have been somewhat predetermined because her mother was one of the first graduates of Mount Holyoke. So Winifred traveled by train to Boston, Massachusetts for her high school and her college education. In the late 1890s, she must have been a novelty to her classmates because she lived in what was thought of then as the Wild West. One time she tried to portray that impression because bringing some school friends home from Massachusetts to Ames for a vacation, she prearranged with her brother to have the train met by whooping it up cowboys and Indians. Now remember that when you see some pictures of her like a stern woman. At Holyoke, Winifred Tilden majored in history and participated in physical culture classes, play days, and pageants, graduating in 1903. Later, she took summer school classes at the highly respected Califf College, which was part of Harvard University. She also studied at Columbia. She traveled to England several times and at least once saw the famous Oxford pageant. All that informed her choice of curriculum in what soon came to be called physical education. She was gradually given permission to add faculty positions. One of those hired, Madge Bowers, remembered that in 1922, while being interviewed by Tilden, she was told, "Ladies do not cross their legs." Even though Madge had crossed her legs, she was hired and joined the 4-member department where she taught dance and health until her retirement. I interviewed her probably in the late 70s. Tilden's goal was to improve women's physical health and skills as she included special developmental health and corrective posture education. And here you see a class as would have been going on early in her years there. Oops. And she also taught golf. She was quite a golfer herself. And this was a 4-hole golf course that she had arranged. And of course, she taught basketball, folk dance, swimming, and English field hockey. At the beginning of her teaching career, there were fewer than 100 students. Tilden was known as fun-loving, but a no-nonsense woman in her days at ISC. She was one of the very few women on the campus. She had to negotiate her way through the structure, and oftentimes she had to rely on men. One early example, there were 2 tennis courts that she was using in her program that had to be removed to make way for a College of Engineering building. This was where the current ISU library is. When she left on her summer vacation with her golf clubs, I think she was going to Colorado, she was a leader, wasn't she? Can you imagine how many people had their own roadster and would drive to Colorado et cetera, et cetera. Well, anyway, she was informed that they would make arrangements for the tennis courts to be built. Imagine her chagrin, maybe even a little anger, when she returned to be told that the money had all been spent. The courts had been made, but the money had been spent, and she would have to look for a way to pay for it. The money had been spent elsewhere. She went to her uncle, her male uncle, who went to his male attorney, who advised her male uncle to go to University male President Storms. He did. Then Tilden was told the funds would be found to pay for the tennis court. She was credited in the student newspaper with reviving interest in women's basketball in 1907. And the newspaper went on to say that Ames is known far and wide for its progressiveness in the sports of the age. The progressiveness led to her starting, along with her students, a Women's Athletic Association, WAA, or in high school it was called GAA. Is there anybody in the room who is a member of a GAA? Raise them higher. It was a good group. We had lots of competition, but it wasn't against other schools. It was between classes or between departments or something like that. And we could earn a letter. We had to be honest and keep our record of when we played tennis and how long and so forth. You may think that that was a forerunner of competition between students as we know today, or in athletic competition such as Big 12, NCAA. No, it was not. It was designed so that students could form their own teams by dorm floor or class year and compete outside of physical education classes in basketball, track and field, volleyball, etc. I was a member of the WAA during my days at, sounds like WPA, but it was WAA, in my days at Central College. It was an inexpensive way to offer all girls, notice I say all girls, the opportunity for competition and camaraderie. Some schools did compete against each other, but they didn't travel there. They competed in track and field, and say Margaret here ran the 100. They would take Margaret's time and they would telegraph it to UNI and compare it with how fast their runner ran. We were very proud to earn letters that way. Miss Tilden initiated the first May Day pageant in 1911, which featured lovely girls in long white dresses doing the beautiful maypole dance, along with other festivities. By 1922, the May Day pageant had metamorphed into what? Visha. By 1922, it was a 2-mile parade composed of student-constructed floats, mini bands, and animals. Remember, there even used to be horses. In 1918, Winifred took a 1-year leave of absence to direct recreational programs for American soldiers in France. She enjoyed the challenge, directing recreation programs for the 4,000 American soldiers still stationed there after World War I. She had taken several short courses in England, so traveling to France, even during those times after the war, evidently didn't frighten her as she served her country. She returned to campus. The enrollment increased. All women students were required to take 2 years of physical education, and more faculty were hired and intramural programs were strong. It was a man's world at the university. Although physical education for women was transferred from the Department of Speech into the College of Home Economics, women still had the major leadership roles. Classes were held in the low-ceiling Margaret Hall. You saw the girls on the what looked like trapeze that was Margaret Hall. That was a dormitory. The college converted the large dining room into a gym. The basement was converted into a swimming pool, which, according to Margaret Sloss, who had worked in the locker room as a student, it was more like a dungeon. As early as 1915, keep that date in mind, Tilden had requested a modern, up-to-date gymnasium for the young women. And the next year, ISC President Hughes included that request in his 1916 annual request to the Iowa State Legislature, and every year after that. I won't ask you to guess when it was approved, but it was approved in 1939. Imagine 20 years of requesting space for physical education classes for women. And to add to that, Margaret Hall had burned down in 1938. It had been the most important building on campus for women because it was the dormitory, it served as a classroom and space for women's physical education. After the fire, women faculty had offices in the basement of that which is now Cat Hall, and there was no space for classes in any particular building, so they just found spaces around campus. Probably some students never made it either. Even after the 1938 Margaret Hall fire, the college's request for a new women's gymnasium was about to be scuttled by Iowa lawmakers. One lawmaker called the proposed building a playhouse for women. The men's honorary at ISC, Cardinal Guild, heard about the refusal of the legislature. And so they told the women, and the women co-eds went to work, and they developed a petition signed by 1,000 co-eds. And of course, those co-eds consulted with a male Ames attorney. He advised them to visit Senator Doran in Boone. And so that's what some of the girls did. They convinced Senator Doran that the funding for a gym was sorely needed. Doran invited those three young women to accompany him to visit the legislature in Des Moines. They went to the Capitol dressed, you guessed it, in their finest business suits, heels, and hats. It was 1938. Senator Doran toured them all around the Capitol, introduced them to the governor and other lawmakers. The proposal was brought to the House. Several lawmakers spoke against that unnecessary expense at the college, so it was defeated. After more politicking and squiring the young women around, it was brought back for a vote. Guess what? It passed. $300,000 was appropriate. It isn't recorded as to whether the three co-eds tossed their hats in the air, but they carried the happy news back to the campus that after 23 years of requesting appropriation, it was granted. The Women's Physical Education building with its regulation gym, dance studio, swimming pool, and here we see Tilden writing letters and requests. And here we see physical education building. How many ever had classes in that building? Maybe 1/3. Oh, even some guys. The Women's Physical Education building with its regulation gym, dance studio, swimming pool, and offices was inaugurated in 1941. This is an example about which Farwell Brown wrote that even strong-minded women needed a bit of advocacy from men. And let's see, where are we going here? Okay. Tilden showed leadership nationally. She was elected president of the Central District Physical Education Association and was chosen to be on the National Association board. She was elected president of the National Women's Athletic Association. At one of those professional meetings, when all the others and the physicians were saying, basketball is too strenuous, it hurts their reproductive organs, and so on and so forth. But she dared to question the prevailing practice of limiting women's participation, girls' sport participation. She shared that Iowa girls had been playing competitive basketball for almost 4 decades, and that they were still bearing healthy children and doing physical work on farms. Winifred Tilden retired in 1941 after a successful 35-year career. The next department head was Germaine Geo. In 1948, she hired Barbara Forker as a faculty member. Barbara came with a range of experiences. She was born in Indiana in 1920, but her family soon moved to Flint, Michigan. She had all her schooling in Michigan, graduating from Eastern Michigan University with a degree in physical education. Barbara always wanted to be a physical education teacher. In an interview, she recalled that she had been a tomboy. And here you see the little tomboy with her stockings and her dress and her sand bucket and her sandette, and with a rugby ball, because the first basketball was often played with a rugby ball, which was not exactly like current basketball. Barbara was fortunate to live in a city where the Mott Foundation worked very hard to have a citywide recreation program. And so Barbara said that she participated in all the inner city recreation program, enjoying sports such as field hockey, baseball, volleyball, basketball. After graduation, she taught high school physical education and related that she had 120 girls in one class. And in that gym, there were 6 doors. And at the end of the class, she usually had about 60 girls still there. Not a very promising start to a teaching career. World War II was raging. She wanted to volunteer, but when she graduated, she was too young. In 1945, after a 3-year teaching stint, she reached the minimum age and she volunteered for the Red Cross, something like Tilden had done before her. Barbara was sent to France to lead recreation programs in remote places where American soldiers were stationed after the war. She related that she, along with her prisoner of war trustee, would load a 2.5-ton truck with all kinds of recreation equipment. And then they would drive to remote places where the American soldiers were stationed. Her trustee made donuts all day long, and she would locate a building in the neighborhood, get somebody to paint it, and set up a Red Cross club with coffee and donuts and ping pong and other recreation opportunities. She held dances and invited the nearby Polish WACs to the dances. That experience whetted her appetite for travel and getting to know people from many different countries. After that 20-month stint, and not ready to look for a stateside job, and having a little money to travel, she and a friend traveled all over the western part of the United States and Canada, and they earned a little money setting up recreation clubs. Someone contacted her about teaching at Iowa State. She kept refusing. She finally agreed to come for an interview, and she agreed to stay for 6 months. I fell in love with it. The students were wonderful. She soon found out that she loved college teaching. Some of the classes being taught at that time included archery, anatomy. I bet you're surprised that people who major in physical education had to study anatomy. Raise your hand if you ever had anatomy PE majors. See, here they are. And tennis. Let's see where, the clicker is not functioning. Barbara was a good golfer, an excellent golfer, and a great tennis player. And there we go. Now we're good. Okay, thank you. And here you see her second from the left. See the teaching uniforms of those times? Nylons, heels, a dress. And she taught tennis, and you see her with the racket, the second one from the left. And then she was asked to be the faculty advisor for NIADS. And we have at least one person, Margaret, raise your hand, who was part of that synchronized swim team. And she said, I never saw Barbara get in the water. And Barbara confessed, I didn't know anything about it. but it showed that she had motivational qualities, organizational strengths, and was popular with the students. And a few years later, she was voted Professor of the Year in 1953. In 1958, she was appointed department head and led a 7-member faculty, which focused on women students, helping them to maintain fitness. And this is all too familiar for several of us. And teaching them to enjoy many different sports as well as learning to swim. The teaching preparation program in 1964, the teaching preparation program included teaching methods, and how to teach and have fun with kids using a parachute was sometimes part of it. Now we're back to 1964. At a 9-state professional meeting, she shared research findings that our country is in poorer physical condition than in Japan and most of Europe. And then she described the 2-year required curriculum for women at Iowa State that included swimming, posture education, dance, and both individual and team sports. Barbara hired well-prepared faculty. And here you see some of them. Some of you might recognize a couple. And you notice they're holding spoons in their hands, or measuring spoons. They were part of the groundbreaking for what I'll describe later. Yeah, okay. By now you can see them. See their wonderful digging implements? Yes. Barbara is on the left, right here. Okay. Oh, okay. All right, I won't do that. Barbara hired well-prepared faculty, and together they developed new courses, organized play days, and planned and directed intramural sports, which was recognized as, hear this, the largest intramural sports program in the country. If you were in intramural sports, raise your hand. Quite a few of you. By 1960, they gained approval for a major in physical education, which included basic science courses, biology, physics, chemistry, and the social sciences, along with teaching methods and knowledge of a wide range of sports and dance. It was a rigorous curriculum which satisfied the requirements for state certification for teachers and fit well in the College of Home Economics where they were housed. During her early days of teaching, faculty were asked to do extension-type activities on the statewide radio. They presented programs on the benefits of exercise to women's groups and to over the radio and in person, and also to 4-H clubs around the state. Gradually, over the next 20 years, courses were added alongside the basic sports skills, the methods of teaching, history of physical education, several dance courses, and with an ever-growing science emphasis, courses included biomechanics, motor learning, sports social, sports psychology, kinesiology of sport. Many of those required laboratories. Forker knew physical education was moving to a stronger science-based field. And in a 1988 interviewed, I hope they never get away from the fundamentals. Students were the center of her universe, and she had a special relationship with them. Faculty were always on their best behavior and tried to meet her expectations to present a healthy appearance and dress professionally. Do you agree, Mary Ellen? And Cindy? She expected much from her faculty. And oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. And they responded. Some faculty quotes give insight into her leadership. This is from Shirley Wood. Things were not done behind closed doors. You knew it was happening and you had the right to change minds. Don McDonald, she's not afraid to tackle tough problems if she believes in it. She'll go for it. She is a great challenge. This is from Betty Toman. She is a great colleague, firm but fair. And finally, I located L. Murdoch when he walked into the room just tonight. And he said, one of the greatest leaders I ever worked for in any country. She was a great hockey fan. And Al, you know, is a hockey coach, former coach and teacher. And I think that's a pretty remarkable recommendation coming from a male. And later on, maybe you'll get a little insight. Faculty did research. Here we see a major. Some of you are in that photo. I'll leave it on quite a while. Eventually, a graduate program was approved. The intramural program continued to grow. Faculty even joined in the intramurals and used Beyer Hall for swimming and sports competition. Forker worked long hours. Hear this. She related working until 1 or 2 in the morning, many mornings. Then picking up her tennis racket and her balls, she would go into the gym and hit balls against the wall until she broke a sweat. It was a way to keep fit. Barbara socialized with faculty. Oh, and here she is at one of the machines. At least I think she's in the gold and red. This is part of the exercise clinic. Barbara socialized with faculty, invited them to her home. Barbara Woods, who was a graduate student in the College of Home Economics, recalled that when she would be invited to her dean's party, Barbara Forker was often there. And she said, we graduate students in home ec had great respect for Barbara Forker. At one of our faculty parties that we had, some of you may remember this, we were having a team competition. I think there were 4 teams, and each of us had to do some silly or stupid thing. And the team Barbara was on had to find somebody to volunteer to stand on their hands in the median of Lincoln Way. And Barbara did it. Were any of you on that team? It's the truth, isn't it? She was fit. As during Tilden's era, it was still a male-dominated university. 3 instances stand out that show how difficult it must have been to be one of the very few women administrators, though even in the 1970s, she was head of the 3rd largest department in the university. One early episode made national news, and some of you will remember that. That was the 1964 Skin Hill standoff, when she did not receive any support from the administration. During those early spring days, some sunbathing and romancing students, many of them couples, almost took over the area between the south entrance to women's PE and the tennis courts. Forker thought it was inappropriate that students going to and from their tennis courts had to weave their way through the amorous students in scanty swimsuits. Some said it should be called Fanny Hill. Forker wanted to ban it. I am sure you were all disappointed that I couldn't find any pictures. Oops. Oh, I couldn't find any pictures, any photos in the official university department archives. Although if I'd gone to the Ames Tribune or the Washington Post, I might have found one because it hit national news. Then President Parks and his cabinet did nothing to get it stopped. Administrators were worried that students might stage a public protest or start a riot. That standoff really made national news. Years later, President Parks commented to me that he regretted the decision to not support her efforts to get it stopped. Another challenge was getting the approval for an expansion to the physical education building. Then it was physical education for women, PEB. Then department head Guile recognized as early as 1945 that the department needed to be enlarged. Forker picked up the campaign, worked tirelessly, and along with her faculty. Once it was approved, she challenged her faculty to design an addition that would meet the then current needs and anticipate future expansion. Oops, we have to go forward. All the faculty had a role in planning this dream facility. I call this my big hair photo. You think that was 1960s? Notice there's one man on the faculty, all the other faculty are women. And I imagine some of you recognize some of those.
Are you in the back row?
I'm not there.
Oh.
This is on the second row in the back is B.K. Keenan, then Phyllis Lepke, and Ellen Rupp now, Joni Gerhardt, Shirley Wood, third from the left on the back. Gymnastics teacher, the little one in the front. Betty Tolman in the middle, nicely staged in her pantsuit.
Legs curved.
Her legs curved, yes, okay. Okay, all the faculty had a role in planning the dream facility, particularly the faculty that were there with their spoons. That was the size of the faculty when they started working on it. Finally, after 25 years, the legislature granted its approval. The appropriation of $2,680,000 in addition to a U.S. grant of $739,000 meant that PEB, Physical Education Building, was expanding to include 3 new large gymnasia, men's and women's locker rooms, classrooms with audiovisual capability, a dance studio with seating for performances, laboratories for the science classes, many faculty offices, and large central office and break room, which came to be well used. Faculty took justifiable pride in the effort. The only disappointment was that the university nixed air conditioning for the lower level, which included the gyms. The university treasurer stuck to his guns on the premise that you were supposed to sweat in the gym, and there was no need for air conditioning. The building was finished at Christmas 1972. It was nameless until in 1997, when the university named it the Forker Building, only the second building on campus to be named for a woman. The most delicate and difficult challenge was the merger of the Department of Physical Education for Men and the Department of Physical Education for Women. They were in separate colleges. In 1972, Barbara was president of the 40,000 member American Association of Health, Physical Education, and Recreation and Dance. And when she was there at one of their business meetings in 1972 in Washington, D.C., she was shown an advanced copy of Title IX. When she returned to Ames, she called a meeting of the head of physical education for men, the vice president for academic affairs, the dean of home economics, her dean. Vice President Christensen concluded the meeting by declaring, "We better consider a merger." That set shock waves through the men's department. Cindy Fredrickson, a staff member, remembers saying, "That will never work." But the State Board of Regents on July 26 and 27 approved the merger. Following a year-long national search, Forker was chosen head of the new Department of Physical Education. At the first combined faculty meeting, the university athletic director and the male coaches trying to intimidate all sat in the front row, right, like even nearer than you are sitting to me. Barbara was not surprised. She addressed them head on, starting her remarks by saying, "I know you didn't want me to be the head. Give me a year and then we'll see what you think." She had planned for an effective merger. It was a 3-year process. Both the men's and women's faculty had a role in working out the new structure. Vice President Christensen credited her with easing much of the tension in the merger. The men soon realized that they were treated fairly and had more equal teaching and coaching loads. And they liked the faculty meetings well. I heard that one of the teachers in the former men's department said, "We had 8-hour faculty meetings in that." And then the head would say, "Well, I don't like it. I'm going to do it this way." That was not Barbara Forker's style. The Department of Physical Education was the first large university in the country to have a merged department. Remember how happy the faculty looked in one of those pictures back there? This one. See, the men and women are sitting next to each other and they're smiling. Barbara's 3-year-long and effective leadership at the national level caught President Gerald Ford's attention, and he appointed her to be on the Blue Ribbon United States Olympic Committee, which was quite a coup, and later to the 4-member executive committee, where she had opportunity to mix with other country sports leaders. There was a lot of controversy going on at this time in the Olympics. And the US's team was doing very poorly in most sports. And the big controversy for the Olympic Committee was allowing professionals to participate. So Barbara was given a specific responsibility, and she didn't mind that at all. She had to interview Prince Philip, husband of Queen Elizabeth, regarding the equestrian competition and how they handled the tryouts, etc. Barbara was honored with many, many, many recognitions and honors, among them the Joy of Effort, and at the end of her long distinguished career in 1986 with the most prestigious award of the profession, the Luther Gulick Award. Iowa State named her a distinguished professor and honored her by naming PEB the Barbara Forker Building in 1997. She was only, as I said before, the second woman to have a building named in her honor. Friends, professional colleagues from all over the country, and former students enjoyed the dedication events. And maybe here she's kind of giving the last word. She thought that the goal of physical education was to improve quality of life. She said PE enjoys, I should say, physical education engages the whole person. The study of the art and science of movement is so important for the perception and expression of human movement. I haven't hit this topic, but I'm going to say just a little bit. You may be wondering if Forker approved of intercollegiate sports for women. You know, this was a really hot topic for many, many decades. In a 1988 interview, this was after she retired and was done by 2 graduate students at the University of Iowa, interviewed her. And they asked her about her attitude towards women playing intercollegiate sports. She pointed out that she got the first sports scholarships for women. She hired the first coaches and the first athletic directors, all the while admitting that she had some reservations. A major concern of hers was that women's sports were going the way of intercollegiate men's sports and that women would be exploited. Reflect a little bit on the current times. One of the former coaches of women's sports lauded Forker for her support and being her role model and mentor. Another involved in women's sports related Forker's lack of financial support and unwillingness to provide sports space for women's intercollegiate sport. Tilden and Forker, each of them progressive pioneers, dedicated themselves to providing all girls and women the knowledge and experience of finding joy in play, sports, dance, and being at ease in the water. Although they lived in different times, the challenges were similar. They had immeasurable courage and determination in battling male resistance. They recruited and hired hardworking faculty who joined them in developing nationally recognized programs. And there are thousands of women over the decades who have played a wide range of sports, enjoy dance, and live healthier lives. Thanks to Winifred Tilden and Barbara Forker. Now's your time. Now's your time. You can contradict anything that I said, because there are many people who experienced it. Did anybody work under Winifred Tilden? No. So everything I said about her is safe. But how about with Forker? Does anybody have any questions or comments? Now's your time.
Women's swimming pool.
Where is the women's swimming pool?
The women's swimming pool is in the bottom of Forker Building.
Back.
It was in Margaret Hall. That's the one that she said it was like a dungeon.
When you had the NIADs, where were they?
Oh, that was in PEB, Physical Education Building.
I'm George McJimsey, and
Yeah.
I was really glad to hear what you said about Aunt Wen,
Uh-huh.
because I knew, snatches of that information, but I never had the full picture. And particularly her changing the curriculum of
Uh-huh.
women's sports.
Yeah.
I might say that there's been some, and maybe this is an indication of improvement, but my brother and I played high school and college basketball in the 50s. And back during our retirement years, he used to say, they still play our game, but they call it women's basketball.
Well, when women first played basketball, the court was divided into 3 equal parts. Any other comment, Chris? Yes.
And I think there was a swimming pool in the Y on campus.
Oh, was there?
I think so.
For men? YMCA.
I just
Probably.
wonder if it played any role in the program.
Al, do you know if there was ever?
Pool and state gym.
Yeah, but before that, in the Y, in the, I've never read that, but I wasn't there.
I just wanted to know where Winifred fits in the genealogy with Farwell Brown.
Farwell was her uncle,
Ah, okay.
I believe. Is that right?
Yeah.
Nephew. What? Oh, Farwell was Winifred's nephew. Yeah, okay. I had it reversed. Yeah.
Huh.
Yes, she was very beautiful. And Betty Tolman, who retired in Arizona near Barbara, told me that one time they were golfing, and Betty wasn't a good golfer, but Barbara was, and there were some men behind them waiting till they played through. And those men were mumbling, "This is going to take forever." And Barbara really showed them up.
Well, thank you, everyone. For,
Oh, there's another one. Yes,
sorry.
that's you. Yes.
Well, no,
Here's the mic.
I played tennis. Yes. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just fine.
I played tennis at the Racket Club in Ames in the 80s, and I remember I have this big recollection of seeing Barbara Forker and was her name Dawn McDonald?
Yes, yes,
Playing tennis, and they
yes,
were
I'm not
wonderful-
surprised.
Wonderful tennis players.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Dawn was the tennis instructor. And if she was playing with Dawn, Barbara was a good tennis player too.
Yeah, yes. Just
Yeah,
small.
yeah, she kept up her activity.
She what?
She continued being active in sports.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't have time to say anything about Barbara's contribution to the community and to the university after her retirement. She was active in many, many things in the community. At one time, she was chair of what used to be Heartland Senior Services, is now 64, which she chaired that board for a few years. She was on Mary Greeley's hospital board of directors. She also worked on the university benefits and whatever that big committee is where they decide on insurance, et cetera, et cetera. She was very much a community person.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you see as today's challenges facing women in the athletic arena?
I think that's an open question to the audience. I would think, this is stepping out, but I would think that Barbara would not support the tremendous attention given to individual athletes now. And we've seen the downside of that in some of the elite athletes and those having to step away for a while because of the pressure. Anybody want to comment on that? I hear mumbling and shaking of head. Okay, thank you for coming.